how's it going? This is Rob Turley with Down the Rabbit Hole podcast, and I have a very special guest here. His name is Marcus Chan, and he has done so many things, I'm not even sure how to introduce him. But first, I am the co-founder, co-CEO at White Rabbit Intel, but I know that nobody cares where you work. So, yeah, Marcus, please.
Hey, what's up, Rob? Hey, thanks for having me on, man. I'm excited to be here.
For sure. So, tell me a little bit about what you do in your own words, because you'll do better than me.
Yeah, man. Yeah, absolutely. Right. So I'm the founder of Bentley Consulting Group. And quite simply, I help B2B sales reps sell more and earn more. That's the simplest way to do it. Right. I've ran this business for about a year, just over a year now. It's been an incredible, a lot of fun. But before this, as we were talking about before, I was in corporate America for over 14 years, wearing the shirt and tie, starting in B2B sales. I've actually only worked for 2 big companies that entire time. Got promoted 10 times in 10 years, had some success, did some pretty cool things, was running large organizations of over 100 employees, doing multiple 9 figures a year in revenue. A lot of fun. And then I got ready to move on, do my own thing, and quit my job, started my new business over a year ago. It's been absolutely a ton of fun and definitely a roller coaster of emotions, as you can expect with starting a business.
Oh, yeah, for sure. There are the best of times and there are the worst of times. And
That's right.
What I like to say, it's the most fun you wish you never had.
Oh yeah. I mean, it's as they say, there's a very fine line between unemployment and self-employment. It's how it feels, right? So
Oh my God, you're telling me, man. I've had times where I was almost living in my car, lived without a paycheck for a year and 6 months. I was playing the stock market to pay the bills.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, I get it. I totally get it. So corporate America, been there, done that as well. Not great. Wouldn't recommend it. But then moving to an entrepreneur. First off, I want to say how impressive it is in just a corporate America environment. 10 promotions in 10 years. That's actually kind of ridiculous.
Yeah. And I tell you what, it's one of those things where it's, I think when I first got started in corporate America, it wasn't like, okay, this is a goal. I'm going to hit 10 promotions in 10 years. It just happened as a result, right? And, I remember when I first got started in corporate America. Now, let me back up. Before this, before corporate America, before I started my own business, I never wanted to be an entrepreneur. That wasn't like a dream, just so you know. It wasn't like, I'm going to start my own business. It's going to be awesome. Like, my parents were entrepreneurs. It was tough for them for the first 10 years. They had a little Chinese restaurant in Eugene, Oregon. So we did that. So I saw how hard it was. So I'm like, okay, eventually, and my parents are Asian. They're like, hey, you know what? You should be a doctor, lawyer, or whatever. I didn't do any of those things. All right. So I said, you know what? I'm going to go into business, if you will, and I'm going to start this B2B sales role. And I remember it was a startup division of a major company, and I went and started with them, and I failed horribly. This is during the last recession, 2007. I failed horribly for several months. Almost got fired. I wanted to quit so many times because I'm like, I'm not cut out for this. Like, I grew up working in a restaurant. Maybe I should go back to working in a restaurant. Maybe that's what I know. Like, I'm just not good at this whole like selling thing. And eventually, fortunately, had success from there. And it's one of those things where it's like, when you grew up with a lot of perseverance and grit, you grew up poor, you kind of figure out a way to just kind of figure things out and just find a way to just survive. And eventually, hopefully, thrive.
I would totally agree. Yeah, I worked in restaurants. I've been a bartender for the longest time. I still bartend on Saturdays because every time I've tried to stop doing it, I feel like there's this giant gaping hole in my life. So CEO/bartender happened. It's crazy when people are like, oh, so what do you do? I'm like, oh, well, I own an artificial intelligence company. And they go, yeah. What? But I get that. Restaurants, man, working in those, that is some of the most productive work. And you learn how to bend over backwards for people. You want to learn customer service? Get shit on by a pissed off customer that is screaming in your face, saying that you are worthless because their steak is overcooked, which wasn't even your fault.
Right. And that's exactly it, right? You learn so many skills in that restaurant environment, right? And with your parents, my parents being the owner, it's kind of like, oh shit, if their dishwasher's not here, you're washing dishes, right? Like, hey, we can't afford to have someone do the landscaping. You're out there with a rusty knife cutting weeds, right? So you find a way to just get shit done regardless. And that was what I learned. So you figure out throughout life, I work my ass off. I should be able to have some success starting in B2B sales. Just working hard is not going to cut it. You can't just say work hard and you'll book more points. Yeah, maybe. It's still hard. So I struggled, right? Then once I figured it out, started having success in every role. As I had more success, is hey, take on new assignment, and that kept happening over and over again, right? So and you start realizing, I didn't realize, until later on, most people just don't even do what's expected of them. And by just doing your job really well and doing more than that, you put yourself in a nice position, right? Obviously, there's some more complexities getting promoted, but in the simplest form, busting your ass, doing your job really well, doing what no one else wants to do, and doing more puts you in a higher, on a pedestal, if you will, which puts you in a position where you can get promoted faster as a result. So that's what happened to me all through my career, right? And it was cool for sure, because obviously it comes with responsibilities, and you learn more skills. Obviously, you make more money, and it's fun. It's fun to be able to say that too.
Yeah, for sure. And part of getting promoted too, it's not just, oh yeah, you're doing all the work. I know people who break their backs for a company. Yeah. They never get promoted. The reason they don't get promoted is because they don't make it known that they're doing the work. You actually do need to show for yourself, because the boss, they're getting the overhead point of view. And if you're keeping quiet, they're not going to notice you. The squeaky wheel gets the grease, right? That's what happens. 100%. And that's the problem with a lot of people, is they don't speak up. And part of that is confidence. Confidence building and self-awareness is one of the biggest things where you are worth it. You need to believe you are. You need to believe in yourself. Because if you don't believe in yourself, how are other people on the outside going to believe in you? You can't even believe in yourself, and you're you. And that shows to the entire world that you don't think that you're worth it. Therefore, they're going to think that you're not worth it, because you are literally speaking as if you aren't, and you're not holding yourself high. Confidence, you can feel it when someone walks into the room and you're like, wow, I need to know that guy. Why is that?
That's confidence, right? But in reality is your outer world is a reflection of your inner world, right? So like if your inner world's all jacked up, you're not going to have a good outer world, right? Like the fruits are determined by the roots, right? And that takes a certain self-awareness to understand that, right? And even getting promoted, like you have to be very comfortable with self-promoting in a really non-sleazy, egotistical way. And there's an art form to that, because you can't say, look at me, look how awesome, look at what I'm doing, because then nobody likes that guy or gal. Like you have to do it in such a subtle way where you still bring value to the company, so that way you stand out in a really good way. And I'll give you an example, right? So like one of the teams that took over, I mean, most of the team that I was given, most of them were like dumpster fires. They're like, hey, take over this dumpster fire, fix it, because you're good at fixing things. So I'll take over a dumpster fire team, start turning it around. Now, I won't just do it silently. As I implement processes and systems that could scale results, like maybe, for example, maybe I revamped even the new hire onboarding to accelerate results in the first, say, 90 days. I would take it and I would systemize it, and then I would train other leaders. I'll go to my boss and say, hey, listen, I know leader A, B, and C are really struggling. Would it be of value if I put together a training and help them be better at their jobs for you? Of course, the boss can say, great, right? So now I get the opportunity to help train and develop them, which increases my exposure. And now my boss is thinking to myself, wow, I didn't even ask him to do that, but he went and did it anyways, right? So those type of things, now suddenly you're subtly putting into the mind of all those leaders that you can do so much more, and you are willing to do it, and you're literally offering up to do it, and then you do a really good job and they get results. It only reinforces your brand that you are a good company person. You are willing to do it for the greater good, which leads to more promotions.
That's right. That's right. And I like how you said, don't do it in an egotistical way or in a backstabbing way, because that will catch up to you. Number one, you can get promoted that way, but it will catch up to you, because what comes around goes around. And I like to call it egotistical. People who are egotistical are egotesticles, because being egotistical means you're probably a dick. So it's directly connected right there. You got to have balls if you're a dick. So that's the thing. It's a dick with a lot of balls. And that's exactly what someone who's egotistical is. You're a dick with a lot of balls on you. That's right. That's it. That's I don't know. It's a little joke that I used to say in college to people that were trying to be that way.
Never heard of that's awesome.
For sure. And so moving forward from there, from the promotion, starting your own business is a whole nother animal. And you don't have to have worked through a bunch. It's not necessary to work through a bunch of different companies, get a bunch of promotions to become an entrepreneur. But you should have the experience to do so. And if you don't have that experience, you should probably have a mentor. And even if you think you are the best, you are very, very wrong, because there are no absolute, there's no best, there's no most, there's no least, there's no worst, because there's always something worse than that. And there's always something better than you. So you're none of those things. And it's accepting that and being coachable. If the leader's not coachable, that is absolutely negative. And the thing about, so a good leader knows how to lead. The best leaders even though there's no best, but the better leaders know when to follow and how to follow.
That's right. 100%.
How do you apply that? Like knowing how to follow, what does that mean to you?
Yeah. So what a great segue here, right? Because like I think about this, right? So before I started my business, and just so it started as a side hustle that turned into a main hustle. Okay. One of the things I realized, this is about 6 years ago, when I was starting kind of dabble into starting my own business, it was, at least a side hustle. I realized, and I got really interested into like internet marketing, selling online programs, digital programs. I knew nothing about that. Okay. Now, because of that, I had zero confidence in myself in being able to do that. So I started to look it up and research and finding people that obviously were way more successful, right? They actually knew what they were doing, and I started investing in like programs here and there to learn, like how to basically how to write an ebook and basically how do I create a website and sell an ebook. I had no idea. I didn't know anything about traffic. I didn't know about writing copy. I didn't know about any of these things, right? So that was really key, especially early on investing in these programs. When I was looking to build my first digital course, I had no idea. Like I was overwhelmed. I'm like, oh shit, like what camera do I need? What software do I need? How do I house it? How do I take payment? How do I make sure it's consistent? I had all these questions and zero answers in my head. And yes, you can Google and YouTube it, whatever. But here's the thing. If it was that easy to YouTube your way to building a thriving business, and anybody would do it. So of course, I went and bought courses with people that can help teach me how to do it. So I started to do that. Right?
That has everything to do with the knowing doing gap. You can know everything in the world, but if you cannot apply it, it's worthless. Like, really interesting thing is like with Elon Musk, what he says, pretty smart guy, I would say so. And he says that there should be no such thing as a rocket science course. You don't learn shit in a rocket science course. All you learn is a bunch of math and you don't know how to do anything else. So if you took a rocket science class, would you understand how to build a rocket? Well, the answer is fuck, no, you wouldn't. No, all you're learning is physics. That's all you're learning. And the issue with that, what he says is the solution, is that there should be a course, or they should revise the course and name it How to Build a Rocket. You learn the science along the way and it's actually applied to something and you're building a rocket. After people leave that class, guess what? They learn how to build a rocket. They can build a rocket. That makes them a rocket scientist. Knowing the math doesn't make you shit.
Yeah. So, and here's the thing, right? So, when I started my business, like I thought I had a pretty good grasp on how I wanted to do the business, right? And I had a pretty good idea already with, with my programs, et cetera. As I started getting deeper into it, I realized myself, what? I wasn't scaling at the level I wanted. So I started investing into more coaching, right? So I went and got myself a different mentor, right? Someone who's one of the best in the internet marketing game, right? I got myself a personal branding mentor, invested into that as well, and their programs too. But all of it's designed to help me, because here's the thing, like, I might know sales, but I don't know shit about internet marketing. All right? Like I don't know how to do all these other things in these softwares that I know to help me with my business, right? And that's where I think a lot of people, they misunderstand. It's like in order to become the best version of yourself, we all have weaknesses. Like you have to invest in whatever areas you want to work on, right? Like if you could just Google it, you already have the result, but you can't. So go get some help. Like if you're out of shape, go invest in a personal trainer, right?
Yeah, that'll get you back into shape. And I like what you're saying, where invest in help. This is so important. And if you if you work for someone else, that doesn't matter if they're not willing to invest in you to learn more, or like a mentor or something. Oh, my company doesn't provide it. That is no excuse. You should go out and actually seek that help yourself, because if you become better than what that company can build you can move on to another company for a better position, with better work, with something that you'll enjoy more, and you've also sharpened your skills. Again, with being a leader and being an entrepreneur, there's a bunch of stuff that I had to learn too. Like, I've never written a contract before. Now, when I write a contract, there's less markups by an attorney than when I had it written by an attorney, right? I write contracts better than attorneys do. There's no markups. There's always like that one thing where it's like, oh, I would prefer this word over that word because, I'm an attorney and I have to say something about this contract. It can never be perfect. So learning that stuff, I learned that on my own. There was no mentor, because you have to go to law school for that, because no one's willing to teach you that. You need a law degree for that. No, you don't.
Sounds like a business opportunity.
But people fear learning new things is the problem, or they go, oh, that's not my expertise. That doesn't mean if I sat there and said that's not my expertise, half my company wouldn't exist.
Yeah, that's exactly right. It's like one of those things where it's like, regardless, you're not going to know everything, right? It's like if you never had a baby before, having a baby changes your life. Right? Like it's totally different. Like you're not going to know. You have to like somebody's going to go through some stuff, right? And you have to be open to understanding and learning. And a lot of times, ego gets in the way of so many people. Like like I already know that. I think about even what I do, right? I provide sales training and coaching, and I have people that have 20 years experience, and they're like, oh, I already know. I got so much experience. I'm like, that's really cool. But experience doesn't equate to results. So what are the results? Oh, I'm missing quota. Well, then how good are you really? like your experience has gotten you to missing your number, right? Your experience has gotten you to not getting the results that you want. So, and a lot of people get stuck in their own minds thinking that, like, well, I've already been doing this for so long. I know what I'm doing. No, you don't. Like things change literally all the time. Like, 5 years ago, Instagram was a new hotness. Today it's, what is it, TikTok now? I'm not even on TikTok, right? Like, it always changes. You always have to learn.
Man, I don't understand TikTok, and I don't think I ever will. I don't get the attraction to it. I feel like I'm actively wasting my own time. That's what it feels like. I am purposefully wasting my time, and the entertainment value is not there because I feel like I'm just literally just shaving away minutes of my life.
That's right.
But that's a whole nother conversation. Though I like what you were saying before, because you can learn anything, and then the ego does get in the way. People who are older are less likely to learn, also because the brain chemistry changes. As soon as you get about 26, what happens is that, your brain is a filing cavity, keep shoving stuff in there. And I can thank Cody. He's a neuroscientist that I know. Awesome dude. Taught me this, is that up until you're 26, it's a filing cabinet. You just keep shoving information in there. But after 26, that filing cabinet is full, and then you lock it shut. So every time you want to replace knowledge or learn something a new way, you need to go to the filing cabinet. You need to unlock the filing cabinet. You need to open it up. You need to sift through it, find what you're looking for, pick it out, put it through the paper shredder, and then put the new thing in, close it, and then lock it. That's what you're doing. So it becomes way harder to learn. Doesn't mean you cannot learn. People just need to be more open to learning, and that should never stop you. Where if you think you know something, I like the saying, I am a smart person because I know enough to know what I know and know what I don't know.
Right. 100%.
Knowing what you don't know is the key, because you know what you know, sure, but you need to know what you don't know and not assume that, oh no, I don't need that because I know this, or I know everything there is about this, so there's nothing left to learn. Well, newsflash, there is always more to learn.
Wow. And it's one of the things where it's like, I picture like, if you picture like a line, okay, and there's like above the line, below the line, like below the line, people typically live what I call unconsciously. They kind of go through life. They kind of go through the motion, and time kind of floats by, right? They go their 9 to 5. They kind of show up. They don't really do much of their life. And then there's people who live consciously. So they're conscious about what they are doing and the habits they have and what they want to improve about themselves. So that means those who are above 26, you have to be consciously learning or knowing that you want to learn and making it a habit, or it doesn't happen. Right? I remember at one point, I got so into Audible books that I stopped reading physical books. And it's one of those things where it's like, it may not seem like that much of a difference, but English is actually my second language. I actually grew up with a speech impediment. So I had trouble speaking for a long time with the speech therapy classes for years. One of the things that really helped me early on was reading physical books, like being able to see the words and reading them, like not on like an iPad, but literally on a book, reading it and being able to verbalize the word, improve my vocabulary ability to speak. So what I realized over like a few years, I stopped reading hard copy books because I was listening to all these audiobooks, right? And I realized my ability to communicate and speak, I felt like actually was going downhill.
Yeah.
Because I wasn't consciously doing it. I'm like, oh shit, I have to change this. So now every night, for the most part, even if it was for 5 minutes, even if it's just one paragraph, which usually some more, I will read a physical hard copy book just for a little bit, just to make sure I'm gonna get that repetition. It's really a conscious effort to do that, right? And the cool part is when you start opening your mind to making it a habit, automatically you start doing other things going to help you learn more. Like you get inspired by something. You know what? I want to, I want to learn Spanish. I want to learn Italian. So you start actively doing it, right? It's like my wife's really into Duolingo, this app on her phone. Because she kind of got away from learning languages, she's been really into Spanish. So she's doing all of those now. And then it leads to other languages, Italian, Portuguese, Mandarin, because now you're in that mode because you're consciously living. and you have a habit now of constant growth and development. And actually, when you don't do it, you feel weird because it's a habit that you've already created in place.
Yeah, you've made it the habit. So when you're not doing it, that's when there's an epinephrine release.
That's right.
And that's what makes you feel, like stagnant and like,
Yes.
that type of a thing. But then you get the dopamine release after that when you start doing it again. So you've retrained your reward system. And I like what you said with reading the paragraph before you go to sleep. Yep. That is awesome. I do something similar where I'm a movie buff. I'm a show buff, not just because of the entertainment value. It's not so much that at all. It's really because I look at film and filmography as an art. The different angles, how they scripted it, the interactions, the quality of the acting, the realness of it, if there's method, if there's not. So I break it down to like a science, but I watch every single show that I watch with the subtitles on, and I read the subtitles during the show. So I'm constantly reading whenever I'm watching TV even. That's super important to me because you learn the structure of the language more so than just what you're hearing. And I love watching shows where, sure, there's a dubbed over in English edition. I don't know the language, say Flemish. I'll watch a show that's in Flemish and I don't know what they're talking about, but I'm reading through the whole thing. And I find myself where I'm not even looking at the subtitles anymore. I do not understand the language. Like I don't speak the language, but I know what's happening. I know what they're talking about simply because of the way that they're speaking, the body language and everything like that. So it enables you to learn human communication through the body language spectrum and idea of things. And you can really start picking up on things such as emotional qualities and reading emotional, so it's like facial emotional recognition, where I did a bunch of study on this, where you could tell by the way someone looks, what they're doing with their eyes, with their neck, with their muscle tense is tensed up or not tensed up, and you could see if they're being genuine, if they're afraid, if they are filled with anxiety. You could see if they're angry with you. Like if someone squints their eyes like this at you, like real quick like that when you're talking about something, that's contempt. They hate what you're talking about and they hate you.
Yep.
Yeah. It's really cool stuff. And doing that really trains that, because that's why video communication is so important. I always tell salespeople, when you are going into a meeting in a virtual environment, if they're new to it, oh, I don't want them to see me on camera because I think I'm ugly, or, oh, I don't feel like having the camera on because, I don't look presentable, or I just don't like showing my face. You're not going to sell much of shit. Even if they have their camera off, your camera on shows your body language, which is inherent. It's subconscious to be able to read that. And they could see if you have good intent, if you know what you're talking about, and if you're looking for their best interests right off the bat. If you're happy, if you're passionate, all that stuff is built right into it. So if you're not doing it, start doing it now.
100%, man. I mean, I'm sure you know the stat, but there's a certain percentage where it's like X% says your body language communicates more than the actual words that you are saying, right? And it's so key. What's funny is I grew up with my parents speaking Chinese, so we only watched TV, like movies and shows with subtitles on. And it's actually, I still do it to this day.
Yeah, man. It's built when it's not there. It feels like something's missing. You're like, oh my God, something's wrong. I can't hear it, even though you can hear it just fine. You feel like you can't hear it.
Well, sometimes they go really quick, or I miss a word, or I'm like, what did they say? But I catch it by reading it, And also, like when you watch like a movie in different language, whenever it's dubbed, it's just not as good. Like it's like you got to watch it in its native language, its native tongue, right? Because then you can really feel the actress or actor and the emotions in what's going on.
Yeah, the voiceover actors usually suck anyway. They're just really not great. But the Chinese films, man. Overs, so it doesn't meet up with like the lips or anything. The newer Chinese films, my God, their voice actors are crazy good.
Yeah.
Crazy good. You can feel everything. And it's like they're actually acting the part, which kind of blew my mind because it's like the first of its kind. Like the Chinese filmmakers figured it out. I don't know what they did, but they found the right people or how they did. They nailed it.
It's probably all AI, some sort of fancy AI.
No, who knows, man? I mean, I work in the AI market, but things like that, like audio AI, that's like a whole nother level for like emotional reaction and stuff. Because I mean, as far as we get is Siri, where it's like, I haven't been able to find your keys because your tile's not connected. Like it's like that type of stuff where it sounds like a robot. But now they've started to put some inflection in it and stuff, where there's pre-programmed sayings and all that fun stuff. But as far as it goes with radio frequency, spatial recognition, and imaging technology with AI, that is like badass what they've done with that. And then we're in the data analytics space. We've gotten further than I think anyone with what we do. And then there is the whole other spectrum of NLP that Google has just nailed it. So there's some really cool stuff coming out there, man.
I love it.
Yeah. So I'd like to know a little bit more about you in the sense of I always see the thing about the Speedo thing, yet I've never actually had a conversation with you about it. I really want to know, and I'm pretty sure everybody else would want to know too. What happened?
Yeah. So for those who have not seen, who don't know me on LinkedIn, it's my tagline, right? From Speedos to selling 7-figure contracts, right? So growing up, I was actually a competitive swimmer. So there's a correlation here. It's not just some random Speedo line of a pattern interrupt, right? So growing up, I was a competitive swimmer for years. So wearing Speedos was a very normal thing. Now, when my parents sold the restaurant in 2002, I was about to go off to college, and my parents said, "Hey, listen, we sold the restaurant." And to me, I freaked out because I expected to work at the restaurant to be able to pay for school. So I had to go get a job. So for me, I mean, back then, people were looking at classified ads and stuff. That's how you found a job, right? So I went around and looked in my network. I'm like, okay, you know what? Like, who do I know who might have a job? And one of the swim coaches I knew really well opened a swimsuit store selling Speedos and Speedo accessories in Eugene, Oregon. So I said, this could be a great opportunity. So I reached out to him. I ended up getting a job there, and it was a super fun retail job selling Speedos, right? Now, on top of that, on weekends, you're going to love this. On weekends, we'd have a local swim meet. Maybe it's 2 hours away. I would wake up at 3:30 in the morning, load up a 1991 Ford Ranger pickup truck, and fill it with like Speedos and gear and like racks, drive an hour and a half, 2 hours away to the swim meet. I would set up racks all day and just be selling Speedos and Speedo gear for like 10, 12 hours, and then pack up, head home, do it again Sunday, right? And it was a lot of fun. I absolutely loved it because it was like, I knew that world. Like I grew up competitive swimming. I knew that world. I got to see the swim meets, and it was a ton of fun. And that was like my first job actually selling stuff in a more retail environment. And what was really interesting was after my first couple of swim meets, the owner called me up and said, "Hey, what are you doing?" I'm like, "What are you talking about?" They're like, we just checked all the numbers at the last 2 meets, and you're doing a really good job. I'm like, "Oh, cool, awesome." Like, they're like, "I don't think you understand. Like, you doubled the amount of sales we usually do in a weekend." I'm like, "Oh, I did?" Like, I had no idea. I just had no concept. I'm like, "Oh, okay, cool." And then they started checking. They're like, "Hey, look, every time you're in the store, we always sell more. Like the average order is bigger. People will buy more. Like, what are you doing?" I'm like, I don't know. I'm just
selling stuff, That's
selling stuff, right? Like, so my boss started kind of shadowing and watching me. She's like, I want to see what you're doing. And to me, it wasn't really anything crazy. Like if someone came into the store, and maybe it's a, "Hey, listen, I'm here. I want to buy, my kid's suit ripped. I need to get a new competitive racing suit for the kid or whatever. I need to get a new suit." I said, "Cool." And I'll say, "Hey, listen, what type of suit you're looking for?" "Oh, we're just looking for something similar to this." I'm like, "Cool. Is this for practices for races?" They're like, "Is there a difference?" I'm like, "Oh yeah, there's a difference in like materials, etc. Because a certain one is going to be chlorine more. So what are you looking for?" They're like, "Well, I guess practice." I'm like, "Okay, cool. So I'm going to recommend this." So they want that. Then I'll say, "But now you have that. Do you have a racing suit?"
Right.
And they're like, "Well, I guess not." Automatic upgrade, right? Then it's like, "Hey, cool. But do you have goggles for each?" So that they suddenly started getting these upgrades. And to me, I wasn't upselling. I simply was uncovering what they came in for and making sure they had the right products, but also making sure I took care of any future needs they had. And as a result, sales would just double as a result of that. Not every single customer, but overall. So that was like my first taste into selling and selling Speedo specifically, but also realizing that, well, shoot, man, like upselling is not that hard when you actually ask the right questions. Kind of similar to a restaurant. If you ask the right questions, you can get more upsells at dinner or at lunch.
That's true. That's true. I mean, bartending, I also serve too.
Yep.
It's just about the upsell is like, are you sure? You're like, "Oh, I would recommend this, recommendations," or "You're an expert in space selling speed." Like, "Well, you need this equipment. Did you think about that?" "Oh, I didn't think of it." You're educating them. That's what's happening. You're consulting them, you're validating, and you're educating them. And that's all that's happening. Like one of my favorite lines when I bartend is, I say, "Well, would you like another drink?" They go, "Oh no, I'm good." I'm like, "You're good, but you could be great." And then they start laughing, and then they're like, "I want to be great." Boom.
Yep.
Sells the drink 70% of the time.
Right.
70% of the time, they drink another one. that it's the ultimate upsell on that type of a thing. And you made me think of a whole thing, part of my life that I completely forgot when you were talking about the Speedo thing.
Wait, did you sell Speedos too?
No, not that crazy. But I thought I didn't have any sales experience. Well, outside of when I figured out bartending kind of is, I thought I didn't have any. But when I was younger, completely wiped this from my memory for some reason, is that I used to clean out people's attics for free so I can take all their stuff, and I'd go to a flea market and I would sell it there as used stuff. And I would, I would sell to people and I would negotiate the whole time. And I learned the best ways to do it, best way to present it, exactly how it needed to look, what needed to be said to them and everything like that. And probably one of the most interesting, two of the most interesting objects that I got was an original Super Soaker 3000. Yes. So
I remember
Super Soaker
green and yellow, right?
Box. In the box, never opened. And
should have kept that bad boy.
Thousands.
Yeah.
And another one of the items that I got was in this ratty ass looking long box. It was a Marlboro cigarettes hammock. This lady walked up to me. I didn't know it was worth anything. This lady walked up to me. She looked like a human cigarette. She had two Marb Red Hundreds in her ears and was smoking at that time, like smoking like a quarter of the cigarette in like each drag. And then she walked up and she was just like, "Hey there, sweetheart, how much for the hammock?" I was like, I don't know. She was like, "I'll give you $450 right now." I was like, "Yours." Found out later that hammock is worth far more than that. You know what? She deserved it. She literally was a Marlboro cigarette.
That's hilarious, man. It's funny, these lessons you learn as kids, right? You have no idea that like he's selling. It was funny. It made me think of too. So I used to. So my parents had the restaurant, and they also during the summers they would have a food booth. And this is before food carts were popular. Now they're like all the rage, you know. But this would be back in like the 80s and 90s, and we have these festivals, and we set up stands and we sell food. Now my parents, before I convinced them to pay me $2 an hour for my time, they would pay us only through tips, right? So they say, "Hey, listen, whatever tips you get to keep." So my sister and I got to split the tips. So we're like, okay, so we got really strategic. Okay. Number one, like we tested this around. Like, okay, number one, we need to make sure it's a really big sign that says tips. Like if it didn't say that, like they wouldn't know. And we put like a smiley face, right? So this they would like it. But more importantly, we're like, okay, it's all about presentation, right? No one wants to be the first dollar in there, so we put a bunch of money in advance, right? Quarters and dollars, so people could see it, right?
Yep.
And then on top of that, we start testing around. Like, okay, you know what? Like, if we like, we would actually use a tip jar. So if it was always outside, if they gave us a 20, let's just say it cost $14.50 for the meal. We say okay, out of 20, we take the 20, we use a tips jar to hold the $20 bill down on the table. We take the $4.50 or the $5.50 cash back, right? And then we say, okay, $14.50 out of 20. And then we would stand back a little bit. So they had to step forward, put their hand over the tip jar. And then we count the money slowly. We drop the coins into their hand, like that's 15, pause, look down, look at them in the eye, and 20, and kind of hold the money sort of a few seconds longer over the hand, into the hand of the tip jar. And we saw by doing that, it actually would increase the likelihood of them giving us tip. And
it's giving them the feel that they have to put it in.
Oh yeah. Because I mean, we had these days, I was like 7 years old. My sister was a few years older. I mean, we do $200-$300 a day in tips, right? That's $150 cash for us, right? So each. So, and I could take that and I could, save up the money. But it was one of those things where it's like we had to be strategic with it because that was all the money we had. But you don't realize as a kid, you're like, damn. That's a lesson in selling right there. The positioning, the psychology of being able to work a stranger to give tips. It's amazing.
And flattery, man. You give a compliment goes a long way.
Yeah.
I would always compliment. I would always play with their kids and make them really excited and happy. This is when I was serving.
Yeah. Yes.
And one of the best moves, if they went up to the bathroom before I was going to bring them a check, I would bring them the check and I would fold the receipt that they keep into an origami swan.
It's those little things, right? Because then they're like, oh, what did I experience, right? Like, and I'm sure you probably did this like if you had a little handwritten note on there or just something like that, they're like, oh, that's really nice. That's really nice, It's
sentiment
just like
sells more than anything. Sentiment, sex, and well, what's the third? There's 3 S's. I forgot the third one. But yeah, sentiment, sex, and something else.
But at the end of the day, it's an experience you're providing for them, right? They get this emotional experience with you in that moment, especially in the food world, right? Food, serving, bartending, it's an emotional experience you provide for a transformational experience that leads to upsells and drinks, or that even then just coming back, Yeah,
this teaches a lesson in B2B though,
right?
Where when you're selling, it's that relationship that's built. It's the emotional response. Yes. Why do you think people are able to sell anything in a commoditized market, a washed out commoditized market? Think about insurance and think about financial advisors. My God, it would be a nightmare to sell in that space. I have so much respect for those people because holy shit, your life is hell. Cold outreach. The second you talk to somebody, they're like, don't talk to me, or I don't want any. And all you're trying to do is just build a relationship. So they're the best relationship builders, man. And these people, they have to work their ass off. And what they're doing is that they're building these relationships. And why do people switch insurance? Why do people switch financial advisors? Why do people switch brokers? Why do people do that? That's the question. Well, the answer to that is that they had a good experience with the individual, or they know them, and it becomes kind of like a referral basis but to get to that point where you're starting to sell and everything like that, you really need to talk to the people that get introduced to people, and be a people connector out of the value that you bring people by bringing people together and by giving them a good emotional experience, or giving them confidence, or giving them something to make their day a little bit better. That's 100%. How you sell something that has been literally sold to death.
Yeah, what's funny is so in all my past roles before I started my business, like it was always very commoditized. I mean, we were selling like even in my last company, we're selling uniforms, mats, mops, restroom supplies, stuff they could really get so many different places, right? And it's one of those things where the focus I've always said too from our salespeople is like, hey, when you're working with, or when you do a cold call, or it's on the phone or face to face, or you're interacting with a prospect, just make it your goal where you're the absolute best part of their day. Whatever happens, happens. But if you were just the best part of their day, whether you get to say it or not, you're going to win, because you're going to feel good about yourself, number one. But number two, hopefully that's going to help them. Maybe they will become a sale or referral or something else. But either way, you just serve them. And that's why I believe selling is literally the highest level service. You sell them something great, high value, you will change their life, their business, etc.
Yep. And selling, if you're trying to sell, then you're not doing it right. You're trying to add value. You're trying to accommodate. That's what you're doing. It's all based on customer service. How was my service? Was the service excellent? Why do people go back to restaurants? Why do people go to bars that they hate the drinks? They hate everything about the bar. It's a disgusting bar and everything like that. The reason why they go back is because they love the bartender. Mm-hmm. That's it. If the bartender goes to a different bar, they stop going to that bar because they never liked the bar in the first place. They like the bartender.
So true.
When some people leave one company because they got an offer from another company that's a competitor, right? You switch. What happens is that the people that are loyal to that person, that company, the original company, now loses all of that business, and it goes to the competitor simply because the person moved.
Oh, yeah. And you see it all the time, especially in financial services, right? I mean, that happens all the time. If maybe they're working for, a State Farm, whomever, they go to some other one, or they start their own, independent one, they usually bring that book of business with them, unless they have some sort of non-compete clause for a while, right? So,
yeah, but what advice would you have to people who are starting out in that business? Because a lot of it is existing business connections, everything like that. If you're starting out, let's say it's your first time selling, because the financial industry they are hardcore and awful to the people who sell, because it's just like, we give you a stipend salary based off of performance, and you pretty much make $0 at all times until you start performing, and then you make a fat commission. Good luck and fuck you. That's pretty much.
Oh yeah.
And then if you do well, they take care of you. If you don't do well, they're just like, well, sucks to suck.
Oh yeah. Yeah, I'll tell you what, man. And so if you are brand new in that field, right? And I think the thing is, like, I had friends that go into that field, and it's kind of similar to like the MLM field, where they're like, hey, when you first go there, go after the 3 Fs: your friends, family, and fools, right? Go after those guys first.
Yeah, like pyramid schemes too. Same thing.
Right. So and I would first not do that. It's the first thing I would not do, because your friends are going to avoid you like the plague. Okay. Mm-hmm. Now, what I see specifically in that field, where I think is an untapped market, is having a true online social selling presence. Like that's the thing. Like we see it all the time. Like Nobody, when you get a cold connection request from anyone from financial services right now, it's always a cold DM pitch. They're just doing it wrong. Like, they don't produce any good content. They don't do anything proper. Like, if they were actually focused on proper social selling, like to be really tactical, like I would literally go on LinkedIn. I would optimize my profile to show that I'm an expert in my field. Okay. And I'm going to utilize it as a landing page to really generate a lot of traffic and leads down the road. And I'm going to mentally expect I'm going to get zero out of it for the first 12 months. I'm going to mentally accept it in my mind. Okay. But I'm going to bust my ass every single day to make sure it's way faster than that. And then every single day, I'll be posting high value, quality content for your target market. Really important. So things are going to be of value and solve problems for them, right? So if you are targeting, let's just say you're targeting someone who's between 45 to 65, who's more established or whatever, they own their own business, boom. What's going to be important to them? Most time for them, it's about preservation of what they got and be able to grow what they got, right? So I'll start creating content for them, right? Hey, 3 ways to grow your already existing 401k, 5 ways to make sure your savings, expand during COVID time, whatever it's going to be. Start providing content of value for that specific market. On top of that, I'd make sure I had Sales Navigator, and I'll niche down a Boolean search target specifically at that target market. Every single day, I would add 50 to 100 connections of your target market with 0 notes in the connection request, completely blank, because they're going to be skeptical and they're going to expect a pitch. So do not pitch them. After they,
oh my God, yeah, I just want to say something about that real quick. So note in, so I accepted this one the other day, and I wrote like half of a freaking book about why this guy should not have done what he did to me to anyone in a C-suite or VP or even director level. No freaking. Who opens with a pitch? You don't just walk. So social selling, it's like actually set, like it's social. So if you walk into a cafe, you're going to walk up to someone and be like, you want to buy this shit? And then they're going to be like, whoa, who is this guy? Get away from me. This guy is crazy. That's exactly what's happening. You open with a pitch. People are like, get off of me. Like, leave me alone. Because you know how many people are doing that? Who's going to buy something from somebody when you just walk up to them and say, hey, you want to buy this? Hey, you want to buy this? It's like, okay, this is either a drug dealer or this person's nuts.
Oh, yeah. It reminds me of like, when malls were around, back then, right? Like you walk past those kiosks, right? Like flies drone, want some cream? I'm like, get away from me, right? That's how it feels, right? So don't do that, right? So you send a connection request, leave it completely blank unless you can hyper personalize it to them, right? Like something like, hey, if they post something, hey, Rob, I freaking loved your post you did today about X, Y, and Z. Love to connect. Boom. That's a little different. But if you can't do that, blank connection request. Then from there, once they accept it, I would send them a video message and get them something completely free at 0 cost, right? And it's got to be something of high value. It's not your time. It's got to be something like, in your video might sound something like, hey, Rob, Marcus here with ABC Financial. Hey, I love to help business owners like you who are in AI, like maximize their retirement, whatever you want to say. Hey, here's a free 15-minute training on 3 ways you can reduce your taxable income for 2021. Boom. Enjoy. That's it. Give it completely free.
It also depends too. It also depends on who you're talking to, because I personally get upset with here's like a 15-minute tutorial. It's like I have time for a 15-minute hunk of shit that this random person just sent to me to try to capture my lead information. No, I'm not doing that. But also it depends on the person who you're talking to, where that could be more valuable.
So you gotta be really strategic with it, right? So if it's someone that you can see already kind of based off of their profile, it's gonna be someone like that, then you have to go 1 level back. And that might be something, hey, your video might be like, hey, Rob, my goal is to give you some massive value. I got this free guide or training. If you want, just let me know. If not, no worries. Have a great day. Boom. Super casual, non-spammy, not a hard close. There is no calendar link. There's nothing. It's just very soft. That's it. And then from there, they can start working to nurture a relationship, open conversation, and lead to relationships, right? But again, you got to treat like you're dating someone, right? You're not asking them to marry you on the first date. You got to get to know them first before you get to that point.
I tell people that every day. Sales is just dating. It's the same. If all you do is talk about yourself, you're the worst date ever. Nobody wants to talk about you the whole time. If you're not giving value, or if you're not offering a helping hand, if you're not trying to make them become the best version of themselves, it's a really shitty, abusive relationship. And that abusive relationship is that you're trying to use them, you're trying to get something out of them, you're trying to get money from them, or you're trying to get them to do things that aren't good for them, or it's the same thing as dating, because in the end, no matter if you're doing B2B, a business selling to a business, no one's doing business with another business. They're doing business with a person at that business. Who are you doing business with? Keith. Oh, what does Keith do? Oh, he works with Microsoft. You're doing business with the person, and if you're being that annoying or abusive or naggy or selfish person, nobody wants that, because in the end, humans are humans, and they pretty much primally relate everything with, okay, love relationship, sexual relationship, or family relationship. And then over here, we have necessities. And then over here, we have desires. And then over here, we have vices, right? And that's pretty much, you can pretty much block everything out to really simple cards, right? And that's how people sell, is that you're sold on those primal instincts. And if you're not following what's considered good, where if it's a relationship-based sale, where if it's not just like some transactional, buy this real quick and then we're done. That's a little bit different. That's more into the desire and impulse area of things. But if you're selling like insurance or something like that, then you're going to have to go the relationship route and be that perfect boyfriend / girlfriend / whoever.
Yeah, there's definitely a big difference, right, on the value scale, low to high, right? Like the high ticket, the residual sales, or you got to do way more work on the upfront to make sure you get to that point, right? And that's why I talk about social selling quite often, because if you do it right and you build up a good audience, a lot of your content will actually over time nurture them, so they connect with you, even if they don't respond to your DM, right? To like get the free resource or whatever, they'll see your content, they'll see your value. Over time, eventually, timing might be right. They might say, "Hey, listen, that really spoke to me, and I'd love to have a conversation. Maybe you can help me out." Beautiful. Now, I would much rather have someone reach out to me and want to have a conversation than me reach out to them. It's just much easier, and that your closing ratio goes up. You're happier on top of that, because you're also not being that spammy person trying to sell you a fake Rolex on the street, or like guy at the kiosk at the mall. You're building real relationships, having real conversations. You're having that human to human sale, which everyone feels much better about in the long run.
Yeah. And then again, it's full circle. Yeah. When you're trying to get promoted, it's awareness. You need to actually let people know that you're there. If people don't know that you're there and they don't know what you're doing, and what you're doing doesn't drive value, one, you won't get a promotion. Two, you won't sell anything, or you'll sell very little. You'll just sell to the people who really need it and they don't feel like talking to anybody else.
That's right.
You're going to get the stragglers, which are not the customers with longevity. They're the customers with an immediate need, which is a short-term sell.
That's right.
You should be selling for the long term. You should be building your pipeline for 6 months, 9 months, 12 months from now.
That's right. Minimum. That's it.
And if you need to sell now to make some money, okay, you get those short-term sales. But if you're trying to build a long-term sales, those short-term sales will come in with it. And the short-term sales are going to be easier to close, because those 100%. People have an immediate need that you're trying to build a long-term relationship with.
Oh, yeah. And at the end of the day, it's like when you start like a new role, whether you're a financial advisor or whatever, it's like pushing a car to a dead stop at first. It takes a lot more energy, a lot more force to get it moving. But once you get some momentum over a period of time, as long as you maintain your effort, it will pick up speed and keep going. The mistakes that people make is they bust their butt really hard first 3-6 months, and then they get some success and they pull their foot off the gas, and then they wonder where the pipeline went. It's like, we got to keep, once you get that six-pack, you got to maintain that six-pack by eating clean or working out. It doesn't stay there by itself.
You're so right. And salespeople often, what they do is that they close a deal. As soon as it goes into that closed stage and they mark it as closed, they forget it ever exists. That account is now gone forever. And you can thank the baby boomer corporate structure for doing that, where it's like, okay, there's an SDR, then there's an AE, and then there's account manager. As soon as it goes to the SDR passes them. You've now lost chances of actually closing them, because you just passed them like a used napkin. Right? Like a joint or whatever you want to call it. You pass them, and then they don't talk to them anymore. So they're not actually building their network. They're just moving people along. They don't remember you. You're the SDR. If you want to get a promotion, leave a lasting impact and stay in touch with them. Then the account executive is only there when they want to offer something else for them to spend money. So that's almost insulting to the customer, because you only ever talk to me when you're trying to get my money. Like, fuck you. And then the account manager is the only person who's maintaining the relationship, who isn't actually driving any sales, because they're not even technically allowed to.
Oh yeah, there's order takers for the most part. That's what it is. And what's interesting is probably 10 years before that, it's like there wasn't really that separation of those roles. Like I was a full cycle rep. Many people were just full cycle. They just did everything, right? Which
that's the way to go. The original POC is so important.
Oh, 100%, because then you have full accountability to the deals you bring to the table. You have that ownership to make sure it's really good quality business, from the first time you do the outreach to all the way through, and hopefully for a very long life cycle and longevity with, the company.
Yeah, like they're paying your commission, right? It's not just, sold them, made some commission, that's that. Right. It's a long-term investment. Don't you want them to stay with the company so you keep making commission?
100%.
Don't you want them to stay with you so you can continue to upsell them? Don't you want to nurture that relationship so you can be the person that upsells them and not the other guy that upsells them?
Mm-hmm.
Do you want your account taken where you haven't spoken to them in long enough or for too long, and then if they have that after 1 month of no activity auto cycle, you lose the account because you're just not paying attention to it? Pay attention to the people. All people want is attention. They want validation, and they want acceptance. That's it. It's social acceptance. They want to fit in. They want validation. So they want to be heard, listened to, and heard. And that's really the whole thing. It's a psychological game, and people all want the same thing. They want to be loved. They want to be accepted. They want to be heard. It's just those things. Coddled. People want to be coddled, and they want to be taken care of, and they want to know that they matter and that their opinion matters.
That's right. That's exactly right.
Yeah. That transfer it into your sales. If you're not doing that, if you think that sales is transactional, and I'm not saying you, Marcus, I'm saying just the general audience. Mm-hmm. If you think that sales is transactional, well, if you're not selling something that is truly transactional, so washed up out of the market where you need raw steel in order to make screws at a factory where you're just buying it based off of the weight and whoever's selling the weight of that product, that's the same quality as all the others because they have to be. That consistency needs to be there.
Yep.
Whoever has the lower price gets the sale because you're talking multi-million to billion-dollar deals in mass quantity. That's once it's that commoditized, that's a whole different story. That's when it becomes about the value in the product mainly, but really it's relationship driven. And until we could start doing sales more efficiently, where the right people talk to the right people, that's part of what my entire company's objective is. People connected, sellers connected to buyers that actually want to talk to each other.
Mm-hmm.
That's what. And then knowing what you're doing wrong, what you're doing right, and where the holes are. Until we could perfect that, the relationship is absolutely going to be driving the sale.
100%.
And whether people buy or not, until we could plug in the human brain into a computer and process that information, there's no way to tell. If anybody tells you, or any tech company, so I work in the analytics space, AI, as I've said 1,000 times, but when companies advertise, we can predict the propensity to buy. They are lying to your fucking face. That is impossible. People don't buy because they had a bad day.
Yeah. People are unpredictable. That's just a reality, right? It's like if I guarantee that company that says they can predict it, they still have salespeople.
Oh, of course they have salespeople. And they have a shitload of them because they have no longevity because people use it and they're like, wow, that's why the gold standard for these behavioral analytics companies for predictions is 13%. It's because their data skewed and it's inaccurate. Why is the gold standard 13%? Well, it's because it's not based off behavior. It's based off a lot of other factors, such as psychography. And it's based off of pass fail, what's working, personality. It's based off of all of those things. You'd be able to measure the immeasurable. You need to quantify the qualified data in order to do that. And that's not what they're doing. They're really just observing the data. And, if you want to accurately look at behavioral stuff. Okay, so you're doing it for a company. You're trying to sell to a company. It's B2B. Okay, this person at this company is doing this, and this on the computer. And that means that they're this outcome and that outcome and that outcome. Since when in the history of time did one person's interaction have anything to do with a company's decision? There's a board, right? Mm-hmm. There's a board. They make group decisions. So there's no way to do that from one person's behavior. And half the time when someone's on their business computer, whether they're supposed to or not, whether they're allowed to or not, they're doing 50-50 personal and business. It's just a fact. It needs to be accepted. People do not follow the rules unless it's like a government thing or it's like locked down, but who wants to work for them? And that's the thing, is that it's not accurate. It's skewed.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Personal behaviors have nothing to do with your business behaviors. Well, I mean, they're correlated, but that's the thing. So one more subject before we finish this up and everything. I'm going to talk about how people's social media, how they interact with it, what they're posting, what they're liking, what they're following, and all that stuff is actually really relevant to the sale and how to appeal to people. Where if what they're doing and how they're actually navigating the market, navigating the web, not from a behavioral perspective so much, but an interests perspective, how that is super important, where if you have interests that align, when you meet someone and you got a lot in common and it's like, wow, that was magical.
Sure.
Understand what they're interested in. Don't understand what they're doing. That's just creepy. Understand what they're interested in.
That's right.
How would you drive your sales if you just knew?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So if you're new, I mean, here's the thing.
I mean new as in KNEW. Like if you knew what their interests were, if you just knew.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. It becomes you convert so much easier, right? I mean, this is why Facebook ads are almost magical, right? Because they know your every action, your every move. They follow you. Right? They know what you click on, how long you watch the video, how long you stop scrolling, what you're looking up, who you're searching into. They know all that, right? And on top of that, if there's a pixel on a Facebook pixel on any of the sites you visited, like that follows you around. So now they know, like if you went and just, you clicked on, you were on a site looking at, it's called hiking boots, okay? Because you're looking at maybe buying hiking boots on some, XYZ company site. They have a pixel on there. Suddenly you go to Facebook and start seeing that show up everywhere because there's a pixel on that site. They know your behaviors. And eventually, if it's a well-crafted ad of good copy, good content, and matches up your time and what your need is, there's probably a good match for a potential conversion of whatever they are offering. Maybe it's a discount, maybe it's a purchase, maybe it's whatever. And it happens all the time. I mean, I use Facebook ads for my own audience too, right? I build lookalike audiences of people that are most likely to convert based off past data I provided for them, and it converts really well. If I have a good ad and it's well placed, it'll convert really well. It'll be low ad cost, and it's quite crazy. And as a salesperson, I'm doing that at scale. You take that same concept and you also want to understand what's important to that person as well. What are they interested in, right? And you can apply to even it's called a discovery. If you do a really good job of discovery, you cover what they actually want, what they need, what they desire for themselves and for the company, and you can align your offer to what those desires and needs are. You put yourself in the highest position to potentially close and convert, assuming it's just that person, right? But if there's multiple people, you do the same thing for each person, that increases your chance of being able to deliver a new partnership.
Yep. But you also need to be very mindful. In B2B, it's much harder with that stuff. Especially if you have a product where there are lookalikes, so there's other choices and stuff. Usually when you go to services, coaching, or something that you do, it's actually easier. It's easier because it's so unique. Even though there's things that are like that, it's so unique with the presentation and everything. But when it comes to other things such as softwares or B2B products, it's very hard to identify that and understand what that means, again, because of the mix between personal and social use.
Correct.
When it comes to behaviors. So there's a couple gaps there. You need to be so specific for it 100%. To work, where it is ridiculous. It's almost absurd. But learning that, often you need something like AI, or you need something along the lines of machine learning to be able to identify what those aspects really are, because it's too much data. But on the other hand, with B2C, holy shit, it's effective. There's this guy, Rudy, that I know. He does artificial intelligence, but he kind of boiled it all down to a science, literally a science. With B2C, it is so damn effective. The reason why is that you look at something, it knows what you're looking at, how long you're looking at it for, everything like that, places the ad, because people have hot spots. It's either they're hot, they're warm, or they're cold. But when it comes to the B2C space, it's impulse buy. It's not based off of a decision like B2B. Like you're deciding, oh yeah, let's talk about it. When it comes to B2C, it's impulse buy. It's like, oh shit, look at those shoes. I want those. That's it. And then you buy it. And so that ad needs to pop up at the right time. So it's the timing that the ad pops back up within a certain time frame of a certain period of time, depending on what type of item that it was, how long they were looking at it. So exactly an hour and a half later, this ad pops up on the specific site that they're on. And then that's just the, oh, damn. That's it. Okay, the ad's here. I got to do it. And
it's a sign. I better buy it.
It's magic. It's magic what they've done with B2C. And I think that the B2B space needs to learn a lot from the B2C space. Why aren't we using half of those methods? I was talking to Sean Storms yesterday, and we were talking about that. And it was just ridiculous how many things that they've pretty much indoctrinated entire audiences. They're fans. They literally, you can, like I was saying to him, you couldn't pry an iPhone or an iPad or a MacBook, I'm using a MacBook right now, out of one of their consistent users' hands unless they were dead. It's not going to happen. You will never talk them into buying an Android. You will never talk them into buying a Windows computer. It will not work because they are so hardcore emotionally invested into the product that there is no change. How do we do that in the B2B space? And that's something we're still figuring out.
At scale, right? Like that's the thing. Yep.
It's incredible stuff. But anyway, we are out of time. Marcus, I appreciate you coming on. This was probably one of the most fun podcasts that I've ever done. So I appreciate it. It was such a good time. And thank you for being here.
Hey, Rob, my absolute pleasure. Thank you so much for having me on.
Of course. And everybody, this is Down the Rabbit Hole podcast with your host, Rob Turley, co-founder, co-CEO at White Rabbit Intel. If you'd like to follow this podcast, it's available on Spotify, Podbean, Deezer, Apple Podcasts. It's literally on everything. So you can just look it up. You'll find it. And please follow hashtag DTRH podcast and hashtag follow the White Rabbit. Do not look that up on Instagram. You will get banned. If you enjoyed this episode, follow Down the Rabbit Hole podcast for new episodes weekly on Podbean, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Amazon Music, Pandora, and YouTube. If you'd like to apply to be featured on the podcast or recommend a featured guest, please feel free to email us at theteam@whiterabbitintel.com.